Hi, and welcome to Pathfinder Bytes. Today, we're talking about a common concern. My baby or my child used to eat everything, and now they are really picky. And I don't understand what happened. Picky eating is a really normal stage for young children, even the ones who used to eat everything. It's something called food neophobia or the fear of new foods. This is an absolutely normal developmental stage that usually starts around 2 years old, but it can be a bit earlier or later. Periods of food neophobia can happen up to around 7 years old. It can last for a few weeks or months or a bit longer. It's part of an adaptive safety response to stop humans or animals poisoning themselves by eating unknown foods in nature. This can be really stressful and certainly does not feel like this when perhaps your toddler will put all sorts of non-food items in their mouth but won't eat their previously favorite vegetable. So what does normal food neophobia look like? A child who's having a period of fear of unfamiliar or non-preferred foods may refuse food from the way it looks or the way it smells, which can be really tricky when you just want them to have a taste of it. They might only want to eat the same foods all of the time, and they might refuse to try any new foods or foods that might look just a bit different than what they're used to. This can feel really frustrating as they may have eaten strawberry or mashed potato previously and then refuse. Or they may refuse it if it looks a bit different than what they expect. If adults insist on a child trying a new food, they may become upset or even gag or become sick. This is not helpful, but do be kind to yourself as it can be really stressful when your job as a parent is to feed your child and keep them healthy. So let's talk about what things are not helpful during this tricky phase, and then we can talk about what might be helpful. Remember to keep being kind to yourself as we've all done them. Having stressful meal times where everyone's getting a little bit stressed and there's a lot of pressure to eat. It's always difficult to eat if you're feeling stressed. Having very, very long meal times, even if it feels like you need to get your child to eat more, it's not sustainable. It makes meal times quite stressful for everyone. Large portions can be really tricky and are not helpful. It's much better to give your child a really small portion and let them then ask for more. Force feeding or any amount of pressure to try to get your child to eat, which is really hard when you're feeling really stressed because you feel like your child hasn't had enough, but it's really important to avoid. Trying to distract them with something and then sneaking it in or hiding foods. Sometimes putting things like vegetables into the pasta sauce can work for some children. It's really important that they get opportunities to explore those foods. And we want to try to avoid sneaking the spoon in. We want to give them some control about what they're doing. Lots of attention and lots of pressure. For some children, even lots of praise about eating can be a lot of pressure and make it tricky. So we want to try to avoid that. It's better to be chatting and eating and enjoying the meal yourself and letting your child get on with a bit while supervising them for safety, rather than maybe giving them a lot of attention so they feel sort of a pressure to perform, particularly when they're finding things tricky. Bribery, rewards, we might manage to get them to eat something, but really long term, it's not usually very helpful. Mixed textures, so putting everything all in together, is for children who are really finding this kind of stage tricky. They actually often will do better if they have their food separate so they can see exactly what they have and they can try different things on their own terms. That might be different for different children. Lots of wiping and not letting them explore food, not letting them be in control. Obviously, if your child gets upset and wants their hands wiped, wants their face wiped, go for it. But otherwise, try to leave the wiping until the very end of the meal. And giving up, if you offer food and you say, oh, they don't like it, and you stop offering it, actually, it's much better just keep letting them be exposed to it rather than giving up. So what can we do that is helpful? Choice is really important. Food is really powerful, and it is a way that children can really make their voice heard and have some control, because actually as adults we can't make them eat as much as we would like to. And children at this stage might make a choice and then change their minds, and this can be really hard. And it's absolutely okay to have some boundaries around this, but just allowing them to choose from a few small portions of a few different foods can really help. So rather than say, what do you want? And making lots of different things when they then refuse them, actually just popping some different foods out and letting them explore those and make choices and eat them or not. Every opportunity for them to see a food, touch it, smell it, will bring them closer to accepting it one day. But when you offer them all those nice choices, don't worry if they don't eat it. A child in this stage might need to see a food many times before they might trust it to have a taste. Every positive low pressure experience is moving closer to trying it. Just seeing it on your plate, having it on their tray, touching it, smelling it, or giving it a squish is all really good. This also lets them trust that they may have a bit of control. A food can be there for them to explore, and you're not going to put any pressure on them to eat it. Lots of good modeling of trying things, but really low pressure. And don't give up, even if they don't like it, they won't touch it, they're not interested. Keep offering those foods. They may need to see it 15 or even 20 times before they might have a taste. Just to give them a little bit to explore and accept their choice not to have a taste this time. And I know I keep saying this, but it's so important. Let your child take the lead. Let them be in control and feed themselves, even if it gets messy. Let them feed you. Let them serve you. Offer some food in a few serving bowls or on a platter or tray in the middle of the table. Let them serve themselves. And if everyone can take a little bit, then they might just be willing to try a little bit of something, because they won't feel like there's any pressure on them to actually eat it. Include some of their favorite foods and some new ones too. And messy is okay. Let them get messy. Try to avoid doing lots of wiping until the end. Obviously, if your child really is upset about having sticky hands or a sticky face, go for it if they want to wipe. But if not, just wait until the end and then do wiping. It's all right to be messy. Children learn about food by touching it, squishing it, smearing it, and sometimes even wearing it. And then it's really important to end on a positive. Notice when your child's had enough, when they're getting fed up, and stop. Offer smaller meals little and often throughout the day. So 3 meals and 3 snacks rather than bigger meals. And stop when they're showing signs that they have had enough. Really try to resist that temptation to sneak another one in when they're telling you no. Celebrate all positive experiences with food, all exploration of food. Let them see you cooking, let them see food in different places, explore things in the supermarket, go fruit picking, grow your own veg. You can do that even just in a window box or a plant pot. Let them have a go and get messy, do some messy play with food outside of meal times. Those opportunities are really low pressure and your child won't feel like they're being expected to taste it or try it. So actually, they might be more willing to have a go. And rather than then pushing a bit more and saying, go on now, eat it, Just accept that they're having some exploration and figuring out about that food in a different way. And a really nice way of doing this is to get your child involved in cooking and shopping, or again, have a go at doing some picking. Keep it really low pressure and let them decide if they're going to touch it, if they're going to smell it, if they're going to taste it. And you can model this while you're having a go, but without actually putting any pressure on them to do it as well. And really important to keep it relaxed and keep it playful. Try to keep your meal times relaxed and food a positive experience. You can be in control of what food is offered and when, but your child is in charge of whether they eat it and how much they eat. Even though it feels really tricky to let go of this control, it really pays off in the long run. The lower pressure, the more likely they'll feel more confident and start to have a go and a taste. And when you are having one of those days, one of those meal times, when your child is having a really tricky time and it feels like they're having very little, instead of just thinking about that day or just thinking about that meal, try and stay calm and think across the week. They've probably had a reasonable range of foods or tried a few different things across the week. Most children will get enough calories to grow, so try to trust them. Think about what they've had across the whole week. It's really normal for children to have a day that they don't eat very much and then they make up for it on another day. Try to eat together for family meal times. Maybe you can't manage it every day or every meal, but when you can, this is a really important opportunity for you to model trying different foods in a really low pressure way. Even if your child has to have their main meal at a different time because of timings, include them when you are eating. Give them opportunities to join in with other children for snacks and meals as well. And those are the kind of low pressure times, like kind of buffet, holiday, party kind of meals or picnics where actually there's different foods available and your child has a bit of control and not everyone is watching whether or not they eat it. Obviously, keep an eye on your child and monitor them for safety, but if they don't feel under the spotlight, they might be willing to have a little bit more of a taste of something because they won't feel scared that you're going to then ask them to have some more. When they feel in control about whether or not they taste it and whether or not they have more, this can really help. So when should you worry? If you feel really anxious, your child is likely to pick up on this. So do seek out some reassurance and some help. This could come from your health visitor, nursery nurse, nursery or school setting, from the GP, or from a referral to the dietitian, or to speech and language therapy if you have worries about your child's eating, drinking, chewing, and swallowing. You can also check out our other videos in this series, which will give you some other ideas. Things that might make you feel worried and times that you definitely want to seek out some extra help will include if you have concerns about your child's weight or growth, if they're not tracking their growth line. If they are really distressed at meal times, or if you're really distressed at meal times, then that's a time to get some more help. If they're doing a lot of vomiting, or have had quite significant reflux, if they're getting a lot of chest infections or illnesses that are requiring antibiotics, particularly respiratory ones. If they're missing out on whole food groups, if you've kind of been doing these strategies, you've been following this, you've been keeping it low pressure, they've had lots of opportunities to explore those foods, and they're still missing out on whole food groups. So they eat absolutely no fruit or veg, or they are eating absolutely no protein foods, like sort of meats and beans and lentils and those sorts of things. So if it might be they only eat one fruit and one veg, okay, that's a good place to start. But if they're missing out on whole food groups after you've been following some of this advice, then that is a time to get some extra help. If at any point they're not having regular wet or dirty nappies, and if they're really struggling to move through textures, again, with, you followed this advice, you followed their lead, you let them play and touch things, and they're just not moving on with their textures. They're not seeming to develop their chewing skills. They're not happy to have different textures. That kind of middle lumpy puree texture is often tricky for a lot of children. So sometimes we would recommend just missing that out. You can go from purees, then you can go to kind of easy, there's bite and dissolve kind of finger foods when that's age appropriate for your child and developmentally appropriate for your child, and then on to other finger foods. For some children who have any difficulties with texture, that kind of lumpy puree texture, that sort of puree with lumps in, can be really tricky, and sometimes it's worth just missing out. But if your child isn't moving on with those textures and beginning to have some finger foods and things, and you've tried all these strategies, then that is another time you might want to seek out some extra help. So you can also have a look at our other videos if you have any of those concerns. And there'll be some more information there. And obviously you can speak to your GP or your health visitor to get those other referrals if you are worried. But otherwise, have fun having a go at some of these strategies we've talked about. And thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on POWIS Pathfinder Bytes.